It was an evening, one of those many evenings. We were coming from school, what you knew back then as lessons. And as kids, we were playing, we were shouting. It was a very safe community, extremely safe. And we were all gisting on the road. Somehow, I can't for the life of me remember what happened. An argument ensued. And as little children, you can best imagine, we started to claw each other's face. Just as we navigated the bend of Road 7, my neighbor's car passed. He stopped. He reversed. All of us froze. The minute he parked, he stepped out and said to us, "Don't you know any better? Why are you arguing on the road? Why are you fighting?" We all could not utter a word. Your guess is as good as mine. We all got spanked, one by one. And then we were shooed into his car. Although we were grateful to get a lift, our tummy had started churning by that time. We had an idea of what was coming. We were dropped one after the other in our respective homes. The auntie, uncle, any elderly person that was at home was waiting to receive us. But with that receiving came the story of the misbehavior. Discipline was in layers. It was a community that prided itself in being involved in development of every child. Of course, the offshoot of that meant that there were authority figures, voices that spoke. Every parent was a dad or a mom. Every elderly person was an uncle or an auntie. The system was such that there were boundaries. You couldn't misbehave. You couldn't act anyhow. As a child, of course, you will test those boundaries. I had several knocks at the very center of my head. That was auto-reset mechanism. It had its good sides, but it also had its downsides. That voice, it carried identity. It carried strength. It carried truth, misbelief, and had the tendency to distort destiny. That voice would ring in your mind and hold reins of your mind and would make you question yourself. So my childhood was fraught with the sense of asking who I am. I constantly second-guess who I was. Will I become? Who would ever hear my voice? Because that authority figure spoke instead of my inner voice. And at that time, the kind of words that were spoken, they were just said. No one ever thought it had depth or meaning or depth. Stupid one. aláìní nǹkan ṣe, good for nothing, òmùgọ̀. Is that what your mates are doing? Firstborns are always a dunce. Ọ̀gẹ̀dẹ̀ bàjẹ́ ó lóun pọ́n. And many more like that. All these words tore at the fabric of who I was, my confidence, and my sense of self-worth. I would constantly think, can I ever make it? Could I become? I recall an incident. I was told to boil meat. I was just a 7-year-old girl. I, in fact, had to carry a stool to climb to the gas and be at that level. I didn't know any better. For those of you who have ever boiled meat, you know the water will simmer enough to boil the meat. What did I do? I poured the water and it filled the top far above the meat. I heard my name. Is this what your mates are doing? How can you do this? Are you telling me this is the first time you are going to see this? I froze. And at that moment, it felt as if my world entirely evaporated. The authority figure, the voice was strong. If you are good at guessing, your guess is as good as mine. I found the broth all over my body. I became scarred and I became scared. Of course, my dad pulled the house down. Well, literally. But it only made the matters worse. Things became really bad. I was labeled. I became a shield for my siblings because everything they ever did, I was responsible for it because I was the dunce. I wasn't the one who would lead appropriately. Then came the time I had to go to secondary school. By the way, I schooled in this town. We had a principal who would say to us every morning, girls are seen, not heard. Now think back. I hear this every day. I started to look for affirmation where there was none. Then I found I could dance. And I started winning awards. I could do drama. But it definitely wasn't enough for my authority figure. However, there was a pillar in the family who would say to me, anything you set your heart to do, you can achieve. If it is going to be, it is up to you. You can achieve it. That gave me inner turmoil. It was a bit too much. Can I be? Can I ever become? In my very dark corner, I would think. Then I started to ask questions. Who am I? Who am I? The authority figure's voice would come and overshadow my thoughts, making me to second guess again. However, I would hear the voice of the pillar. If you choose to be something, you can achieve it. I decided to test it. I started testing. I explored. Wow. I got the first one. Then I realized that I needed to then have a vision, have a purpose. I began to discover who I was really out of that voice. My inner voice started to speak. With vision and purpose, it was time to amplify my inner voice by growing it. How did I grow it? I built capacity. As I built capacity, I leveraged on the feeling and the courage. With capacity came competence. As I nudged on, competence built mastery. Then I started to change my circle of influence. The authority figure voice started to drown. As it drowned, I stepped forward to nurture more. And I nurtured. And I grew. I became. Today, I stand in front of you to create strength, to enable you arise and speak to the voice inside of you. Suppress the negative one. Confront every fear you ever had. By this, I enable others. As I enable, they become voices that speak greatly, that have stand and are still standing in the place of greatness. I arise in strength. Today, I ask you, what voice are you nurturing? Benefit of hindsight. My authority figure just did not know any better. It was just a projection of fears. Because back then, if a firstborn failed, the family failed, the community failed. And so the fears were projected. It was tough love, intense, very tough love. It wasn't hatred. It was the only way of discipline they knew at the time. Today I stand before you. I challenge you. What voice would you listen to? The voice you listen to is what you grow. Your growth determines what you nurture. What you nurture determines what you become. What voice would you choose? This voice. Thank you.